everyone, welcome back to New Comic Book Late Night Live. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is the amazing Curious Lo.
Good evening, everyone.
And we're back at midnight to chat with you about brand new comics. Lo and I are going to count down our three favorites from last week and tell you the books that we are most excited for next week. Somebody's already predicted one that is on both of our lists, which will surprise no one. Even this coming week, I keep saying next week, this coming week, this Wednesday, the books that we will be discussing next week. I'll just go ahead and throw this out there. No one will be surprised. The big thing, the big anticipated thing lately has been DC Rebirth, and the big 80-page behemoth comes out this week at just a $2.99 price tag. I think it's so cool that we're doing that, regardless of whatever any of us might think about things that we have already heard leaked about this whole thing. More on that next week, and I don't want to talk. We'll answer some questions at the end if anybody wants to engage us about stuff after we get finished talking about all of our books. But just like I said last night on Zero Hour, we're not going to talk about any of the leaked stuff from that book because I want anybody that doesn't want that spoiled for them to get to read it. And I wish that I had gotten to read that and discovered it in the middle of the book. So let's not chat too much about that this evening. And by too much, I mean at all. But hello, everybody watching live. Good to have you here. I always want to say good to see you, and I can't see anyone. I can see
good to see your screen names typing things in the chat.
Yeah, thanks for being here, folks, and feel free to leave comments throughout the show. We'll be taking a look at the chat here and there as we go along. If anybody has anything to say about stuff that we're talking about throughout the evening, and then, as I said at the end, we'll have an Ask Us Anything section, and let's go ahead and get started on it. So our top three books from this last week. Lo, I picked up my books today. I was at a convention this weekend. I didn't get a chance to go. I've been going and picking up my books for whatever reason lately on like Friday or Saturday, and I didn't even get them that early. So there might be one or two things. I didn't look at last week's list again. There might be one or two things that I should have picked up that weren't on my pull that I didn't grab, unfortunately. So we'll see if anything comes up where people are like, "Cap, why aren't you talking about this?" That would be the reason. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Lo, do you want to go first or second?
Why don't you go first? I think I went first last week.
Cool. We can remember at least a week.
I know. We'll try.
Not a giant week for me last week, although a couple of things I really, really liked. My number three from last week is by Brian. We've got our kind of standard Bendis writing on this book where not a ton is happening in each issue. It's pretty decompressed, but that's not a horrible thing. I'm still enjoying this book every month, and it's consistent with what this book has always been when it was Ultimate, and now when it's just plain old Spider-Man. It's going to read better in trade. These always do. But I love that Bendis is mixing in some stuff that he's done recently, bringing in my favorite of his new X-Men Gold Balls, and I love that we finally just settled on that for his name. For the longest time, he was like, I'm not going to call myself that. That sounds ridiculous. And he couldn't come up with anything else because that's his power. What are you gonna do? And Larry says none of the other kids seem to even really care. Like he's impressing everybody with his powers, but Gank is treating him like a big celebrity, and everybody else is like, he's a mutant kid. Who cares? I think that Bendis is delicately and pretty deftly dealing with race issues and other sorts of minority issues in a pretty grown up way, and I found myself enjoying that discussion as opposed to wishing that he wouldn't even broach it. And it's been a thing that he's never danced around with this character, but it's also not, this Spider-Man's it's not Miles's prevailing character trait. It's not like he's the Black Spider-Man. There's a lot to him, and he lives in the culture he lives in, and so it's a thing that comes up and Black and Hispanic, and there's this somewhat amusing argument here about whether in New York where they they live, if it would be harder to be an overweight Asian person or a black Hispanic person. And I was, again, kind of surprised that I was enjoying that argument and not going, okay, let's not deal with the race stuff. Some kind of an interesting development by the end of this. Some really cool action right in the middle. This is not a real action heavy book. It's pretty dialogue driven most of the time, and getting into some kind of street level crime drama stuff by the end. So yeah, pretty decent issue of Spider-Man. What's your number 3, Lo?
My number 3 is something that was on my top 3 most anticipated books. It was the One-Shot from Lumberjanes. I really like this book overall, but I don't know, one-shots are always fun to me, especially with these sort of books where it's just a bunch of kids having fun, and one-shots work really well, I think, with this type of book, and I read a lot of them. The girls were on a little hike through the woods, and they were told a ghost story by their camp counselor, and they all start to think that there might be an axe murderer after them in kind of classic camp style. Very cute, very fun, as always with Lumberjanes, and I always really like the art a lot in this book. I think that it works really well, and the characters are all really fun and adorable, and it's just a really fun book, as always. I don't have a ton of deep things to say about it because it's about a bunch of girls thinking that there's an axe murderer after them and is stealing all of the snacks from their mess hall, which is not the case. So it's very fun, though.
But that would be a fantastic villain motivation.
Right? He just really needs snacks. Well, I mean, that was
really
the guy's motivation in the ghost story, was that they were all hungry, and so he became like a cannibal murderer and killed a bunch of people. And so they think that he's stealing all their snacks because he's really hungry.
I get my powers from Little Debbie.
Exactly.
Like heat beams come out of my eyes. That's the stuff, hostess. All right, my number 2 this week is Silver Surfer number 4. Hard not to put this on my top 3 every time this comes out. Lo, did you read this week?
I did not. No, I'm not reading Silver Surfer.
Oh, I thought you were. You should be.
Okay.
You would absolutely love this book. You really should be reading this book.
All right, I'll look at it.
And Squirrel Girl is in this issue, though she's kind of just standing around with a bunch of other people that are just standing around, but just fighting and not having any dialogue.
She wasn't like she's not a main person,
important or anything. And it kind of feels like we're putting all the quirky characters together, and plus some other people and other characters that have been winding up in quirky characters books lately, like female Thor. I don't know what that's about. We're female Thor keeps popping up in the silly weird stuff. But anyway, so Silver Surfer seemed to have died, and we have already brought him back in this issue in a pretty believable and compelling and just wonderfully heartfelt way. That's the big thing I always have to say about this book, is that it's just got a deal of heart. We're still dealing with the importance of culture and why culture matters. And what's really sad from last issue is that Silver Surfer, in order to bring Earth's culture back and not lose it, because Shalabal from Zinla was trying to get rid of all of Earth culture, he had to basically trade it out so that we lost all of Zinla's culture, and that's his homeworld. So he had to basically destroy his home and everything that matters to his people in favor of Earth's. And it was kind of a situation where he had no choice, and I don't think he exactly knew that was going to happen either, to be fair. But it was basically a kill or be killed situation with art and culture, and I thought that was really interesting and incredibly imaginative. Dan Slott is just on this book every single time, and it's a really fun out there thing, but it's hard not to really take it seriously within its own context. And I'm moved every time I read this book. There's also this really cool revelation about Alicia Masters, who has apparently been off panel learning to fight and is almost as good. It seems to be almost as good as Daredevil, and got a stick from Matt Murdock, and in Braille on the side of the stick, it's engraved from Matt Murdock. So he gave her a fighting stick, and I think that's a billy club, and I think that's fantastic. And so we've got this really cool fight between her and Shala Ball of all people. There's a thing I never thought I'd see: blind Alicia Masters versus a really sad, tortured, villainous version of Silver Surfer's widow, excuse me. And that was a really fun and kind of gripping scene. And the end of this issue, really hard not to get a little bit misty-eyed. I love this every time. It's topped itself every issue since the beginning of the second volume. What is your number 2, Lo?
All right, well, I'll definitely have to check that book out. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, you should.
So my number 2 was Future Quest number 1. I know mostly about these characters from like Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Like, I'm not familiar with them in comic form, or really outside of just like Cartoon Network stuff from when I was growing up. But I really enjoyed this. Obviously, this is nothing like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but I
didn't get a chance to get. That was one that we were sold out of at the store.
Oh no!
I didn't get to
Oh man, it was really good. I'm excited to see where this is going. I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff for you, but
how much panel time does Space Ghost get?
He is not in it really, but he does, like, he's not actually in it, but you see him through a portal. So right now, this was just there was like a bunch of variants of the cover, and this was just the one that I liked the most because that's the character that I'm the most familiar with. But yeah, no, he's not in it. It seems like he will be in it. I'm intrigued by what's going on. There's like a plot going on with some like other Earths, or not Earths, but just other planets. Oh man, I don't want to spoil you.
It's all right.
I don't know. It had the boys getting into some mischief, and it set up some pretty intriguing plots. I feel like I'm looking forward to this. I'm definitely going to keep up with it. Yeah.
From the beginning, is that prime?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, the whole thing is, I mean, it's, let's see here. Intro. And lots of ads. So right away, I mean, we've got them all flying around. Dr. Quest is doing his thing.
That art is legit.
Yeah. It's awesome art. So it's a lot of Dr. Quest. And then Johnny and co. flying around, getting shot at by.
That's not even a show I grew up with real hard, but hard not to get nostalgic icon for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really good art. So fun book. I liked it. I'm really, really excited for the plot. I think that they set it up really well. I was really invested in this issue, and number 1 sometimes don't grab me right away. Like, usually it takes me a couple issues to get into it, but I was right on board with this right away.
Man, I really should have put that on my pull list and completely forgot. And kind of figured I wouldn't have any problem getting hands on it, but
I just, for once, you got your comics late this week. I got them very early because I was out of town all weekend, and I knew I was going to have to get them early because I wouldn't have time to get them today, and I was out of town. So I got them on Thursday, so I was right near the beginning.
Well, I will make sure and order that and check that out. My number 1 this week is, see this and thinking that Silver Surfer probably should have been my number 1, but they're tied, I suppose. Old Man Logan number 6. Once again, I keep putting this on my list. This has just been absolutely wonderful, and is just heart-wrenching, this thing. So Logan has put himself in a place. He knows now for sure that he is in an alternate dimension as opposed to in the past of his own world. But he has discovered where this universe's version of his wife from that world is, and of course she's a little kid right now. And so he moves up north around where Weapon X was, and that's where she is, and moves to this little community. And he's there just to make sure that nothing happens to her. And he like moves in next door, and he talks to her, and he's really nice, and he hangs out with her parents and stuff. And he's developed this really good reputation around this town. He's like and we've got kind of lumberjack Wolverine again, and he's as happy as he's ever been. And of course, in 4 pages, that all falls apart. And some bad guys find out that he's there and come looking for him and decimate this town. And Logan is, of course, feeling at fault for it and starting to think that maybe he was there more for himself than he was for this girl that he's trying to protect. And super sad and tragic. And really, really impressive how Lemire is mixing the really dramatic stuff with the kooky comic book stuff, because the main bad guy that's coming after him is a guy whose legs are a tank. And he is like the bad guy in the AVGN movie. And in this context, it's just it's just brutal and mortifying, and he doesn't even feel silly. It's this really stylized, heightened kind of thing where that kind of you just kind of accept that kind of stuff, and it's really good revenge thriller stuff. But this book has been ultra violent all the way through. I would say to the level of the Cullen Bunn's Magneto. That was kind of the same sort of thing, which is kind of fun because Magneto and Wolverine are like really opposite kinds of characters, both. But that's one big thing they have in common is that they go on these big revenge quests a lot. But anyway, the new arc of this just started like last issue, so that was a decent jumping on point if you wanted to jump into this. And the first arc is quite good, but it's mostly Wolverine figuring out that he's in 616. And now that if you know that, especially if you've read the old Man Logan, it'd be pretty easy to read on from there. Lo, what is your number one?
My number one probably won't surprise really anybody because this has been in my top 3 every single week since it started. Spider-Woman number 7, which is Spider-Women number 7. Look at that. It's all lined up and everything. This issue was awesome. I think this is my favorite issue of this arc so far. I am so intrigued by, Earth 65, Jesse. That's such a cool concept.
His backstory is fascinating.
Right, and I loved the way that we got it. I love that it was Gwen who was sort of looking into it, and I love, there's a panel in here that I just love. This one with the white background where it's just Gwen and Jesse facing off. I don't know what it was about this, just like the poses and stuff after everything that happened, and then following it with the like X-ray punch. I don't know, this whole issue really got me. I feel like it definitely.
Well, I wasn't sure about the X-ray punch. No. I don't know why that panel was in X-ray because it's not like anybody has any superpowers in that scene. Like I wasn't sure what that was about.
Because she like her hand's really bad.
Yeah,
she doesn't have any superpowers right then. But I love
but I'm a stickler for perspective, and that was weird.
I love that both her and Jesse have been having the same way that they've been getting their spider powers. I mean, that makes it a little bit consistent over that Earth and that reality as to how the different spider people are becoming spidery. This set up the Omega issue, which comes out next week, really well. I've loved this entire crossover. Definitely going to buy the trade, even though I have every issue already. Like I love it that much. I can't recommend it enough. I've loved it, and I've loved the art, except for last week's issue. For some reason, that issue had weird art, but all the other ones have been awesome, and I've really loved the plot. So, yeah.
I am always fascinated, and I'm kind of a sucker for interdimensional stuff when it's done well.
Uh-huh.
And of course, we've been seeing tons of it lately. But I'm a sucker for the like two different people from different dimensions that are the same person but different genders, and it's not done a lot. And this is one of the coolest and intriguing versions of that where they're kind of a mirror for each other, and they see stuff in each other that they both like and don't like in themselves. And the chemistry between those counterparts is palpable. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I also just like her as a mother having to balance her superheroing lifestyle with being a mom, and that's quintessential old school Spider-Man stuff. With Peter Parker trying to be a regular kid and her being a mom, and like I love that she picks that fight.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
It's in her house. It's in front of the kid. She picks that fight, and she really thinks better of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, but I mean, like, it's kind of in her personality. She's pretty
quick.
She's pretty quick to anger, so that's right on par for her. Speaking of like the mother stuff, I don't know.
It makes me wonder if if it makes sense for her to be a mother, if that's even a good idea.
Yeah.
And like it's and then having to balance that with being a superhero. Like, is she really very good at either of those two things?
Well, and I love the fact that even though Jesse's been sort of forced into being this kind of like mercenary sort of character, that they're similar enough characters that when the baby starts crying, they both kind of stop and they're like, oh, wait, this is not we should not be fighting here because A, there's a kid, and also, why are we fighting?
And they're both family people.
Yeah, so they've got that in common. Yeah, it was a really great issue.
If this was happening in his house, it would have turned out exactly the same way.
Yeah. I mean, because we kind of already saw that. I mean, not against him, but with his wife, same sort of thing. Like
exactly.
I mentioned it with the parallel to Kill Bill, that they kind of like stop because the child kind of enters the room and enters the house, and they're like,
"Are you finding him surprisingly one of the most sympathetic and layered characters in this?"
Yeah, and just a couple. What was it, like 2 or 3 pages of his backstory was super interesting. I want his comic like that. I was all about like everything that was happening with him being on the moon base and that sort of stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm saying is like he's certainly responsible for a lot of stuff that he's been doing, but he's also the victim in his situation, and is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So
exactly.
he is, he's kind of a bounty hunter, but he can't. There's no way around it. He's got to do that to keep his family safe.
Yeah. So loved it. Definitely my number one, and it earned it.
Or I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's not just to keep his family safe. It's that he thinks he owes her, and that he needs to like that whole thing. I guess I shouldn't give too much away, but that whole thing about thinking that he has to keep working for her to get his powers.
But not even to get his powers. He was scared that he was going to die at one point. He says to, I think, Gwen, I can't leave my wife and child behind. Like, I'm willing to do some shady stuff to be there for my family. And that's such a complicated thing to wrestle with. So, yeah, intense issue. I'm really excited for next week. I kind of don't want it to end, but I think it's been the perfect length, and they've done a lot of really great character building and plot building. I think it's going to pay off.
Yeah, I'm surprised that's one of the best things I'm looking at right now.
Woo!
Let's go ahead and move on now to other books that we read this week. And what else did you have on your pull this week?
There was also another issue of Lumberjanes, just of the regular comic itself. I had multiple things of Deadpool. We had Marks for Money, which it's Deadpool. And then we had Last Days of Magic, which I did not get a chance to read. I also did not read Doctor Strange, Last Days of Magic. I figured I didn't read one. I could probably skip the other and hopefully get to them by next week. And that was it for me. Oh, and then the book that is my top cover, but Ant-Man as well. That was my pull. It was a smaller one this week.
Yeah, I've got, of course, Deadpool Merc for Money also. Not that I'm reading all the Deadpool stuff like Lo is, but I always read Cullen Bunn's Deadpool. This is getting more interesting. I gotta say, I got a little bit of a pet peeve with this, and I'm sure some people don't mind this, but this is just a thing for me. The joke on the first page with, there's all this Spanish in balloons, and if you don't read Spanish, go look it up. That's funny and okay if it was just that one page, but then there's like 6, and I just think that's kind of irritating for people that don't happen to speak or read Spanish.
They did an entire issue in Spanish on the main Deadpool book. I think it was issue 3. Yeah, there was an entire issue in Spanish. I thought it was funny.
I don't.
But I can read Spanish well enough that I can get through with context, especially since it's a visual medium. But
yeah, and I'm sorry, I just don't happen to be bilingual, and I'm not real good at learning languages, and I haven't felt the need to finally sit down and learn Spanish. And I just I don't like how isolating that is, where it's like, look, we live in this bilingual culture now. If you don't read Spanish, tough luck. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't love that. I don't think that's really quite fair for people that are trying to enjoy this book. That's just me. And then it's meta Deadpool stuff, so I'm sure Cullen Bunn would enjoy that it's irritating people. Like it's also somewhat on purpose, you know what I mean? Where it's like, no, that's the idea.
People are going to hate this.
Yeah, Deadpool is trying to annoy you on purpose. It's like, I know there's some of you people that don't read Spanish. You should learn Spanish. And if you don't think chimichanga jokes are funny, tough luck. And if you don't think it's funny that we put a chili dog inside of another chili dog, you know, just get over it, because that stuff's hilarious.
If you don't like chimichanga jokes, what are you doing reading Deadpool? Let's be real here.
I thought the Road Warrior stuff was kind of funny, and I also really like the
guy with the eyeball for a head.
Oh, he's great.
There's like a specific shot this is not a movie. There's a specific panel I'm thinking of where he's like, it's like a wide, there we go. I don't know what it was about this one that just, I don't know, it made me laugh.
Yeah.
This was like him on the motorcycle and like everything that's happening and just people all over the place. I mean, that's kind of classic Deadpool, but
he's fantastic. I appreciated reminding us, because I'd forgotten about this, that he has an eye for a head because of the Watcher, and I want that guy to get his own miniseries or something. I think he's fantastic. And the revelation at the end about the robot was really intriguing and made me actually finally excited to read the next issue, which I have not really had with this book. So that's good. Star Trek Manifest Destiny #3. It's more of a big giant Klingon cinematic movie in comic book form. The Klingon movie you would figure you would have gotten, but they decided just not to make that. I'm surprised in this book, and I like all the discussion about what honor actually is and whether or not the Klingons, because there's always been a thing with Klingon culture, the Klingons are using that just as a justification to be a warrior race, or if there actually is anything to it. And we've got this really extreme version that seems to be kind of like General Chang on steroids, where he's kind of gone beyond honor, and he's just conquering, and the Klingons aren't really supposed to be just about that. And so you've got the kind of the extreme of that versus a middle of the road warrior society. So that's and it's of course really super action driven, but there's at least an idea behind it. So I appreciate that. Spawn number 263. So I put this on my list last week for anticipated race about it, and it's awful. Naturally, I'm not surprised. So Al Simmons is human again, and doesn't have his spawn suit. And now I am a little bit intrigued, I guess, sort of to find out if he still has any of his powers, but it's weird that he doesn't try them out or anything in this issue, because Todd McFarlane, as always, is stretching out basically 2 pages of story to a 22-page comic book, like he always does. See, this is my problem. If I start talking about Spawn, I just say all the things I've said a million times in talking about Spawn before. It has all the same problems, but it's getting hilarious, Lo, because he doesn't have his powers, but we've got Eric Larson, and we want to get to see Eric Larson still draw cool Spawn things. He just has a dream sequence where he's like, I had a dream last night. There were all these scary bad guys, and I was Spawn, and they were terrified of me because I was Spawn. And just a pointless dream sequence that's not really revealing anything. And I like how he makes a big deal out of, and they were afraid of me. I'm like, you've been a scary hellspawn dude with the power to destroy and remake the universe for 25 years. If anything, you should be surprised when people aren't afraid of you. You should walk out on the street and be like, oh yeah, I can go up to Aldi and buy a gallon of milk and no one will notice. Like that's what this should be about, is him getting used to the fact that he wouldn't, like nobody's going to notice him on the street anymore. He can live in a normal person place and stuff and have a regular life. I do like that he is supposed to, and that he's having to do that not knowing if he actually has powers, and that's a good idea. The execution's not there at all, but it's a good idea. Man, the dialogue is just as juvenile as always. And while, like, now we're being beat over the head with Al Simmons is sympathetic now, and that's hilarious. Like we've acknowledged that he didn't used to be likable, but now we're constantly being told that because Wanda told him, and again, he can't come up with things on his own. It's like Wanda said, nah, you should go off and be a superhero, and he's like, that's what I'm gonna do. But he's still to what's his face, Terry Fitzgerald at the beginning of this, and neither of them sound like real people, and it's all the same problems I always have with Spawn. But anyway, and then the last thing I read this last week was Superman Wonder Woman number 29, and I'm not caught up on this book, but I read this out of context because Supergirl was on the cover, and I'm a big sucker for New 52 Supergirl, so I was just curious. I read it, and then she only shows up for the last 3 pages naturally, and so I'm glad that I went ahead and read this. I didn't actually know that this was the case, but I'm glad I went ahead and did this because it is an extension of the Lois and Clark book, and in fact, I guess this is running through several Superman books right now. The Final Days of Superman. That's kind of funny. You know, you can't call a thing Death of Superman because we've done that. So now it's the Final Days of Superman, and you've got all these different Supermans. That's been a really popular thing to do lately, by the way. A bunch of different people in Superman suits calling themselves Superman, and that's been real popular since the 90s. And we're setting up the old school Superman that has come through from the alternate dimension that we've been doing in Jurgen's Lois and Clark, which I've been talking about a lot, as being the main Superman for Rebirth. And so more of that is built up to in fish, and he forced a fun scene, and I mean, I enjoyed this overall, but it was very much, you know, out of context. I read the first 6 parts of this, but I imagine that some people reading all of these up to this point would still be slightly lost if they haven't been reading Lois and Clark, so I felt like I at least had a leg up there. But those are the things that I read last week, and then we're going to go on to the cover of the week. And Lo, what was your favorite cover from last week?
I already sort of mentioned it, but Ant-Man number 8. I liked the characters that were all introduced, or at least introduced for me. I'm not sure if they're common characters. I've never heard of them before. These three guys right here. I love all the faces that they're making. I know it's kind of a silly reason to like a cover, but it's why I liked it. They're all just making really silly faces, and they're all very silly characters, so it's a kind of, I don't know, like dark is the right word. It's a kind of serious looking cover, I guess, as much as you can get serious with Ant-Man, but it's kind of a funny issue. So that's why I liked this cover. What about you, Cap?
Somebody let me know in the comments. I thought Superman American Alien was supposed to come out this week, and I know that was on my plan. I'm like, what happened to that? So somebody was talking about that in the comments. I think that actually came out, so I'm gonna have to try to get that too. Yeah, I just gotta make sure I go to the store on time.
I had something that I thought was supposed to come out this week that I had in my top 3 last week, and apparently I should know this by now, but I need to like double check that Comixology is not always correct because it actually came out the week before, and so I missed it, and now I need to like order a copy.
Yeah, they get their wires crossed sometimes.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Oh, we all. Yeah, it did come out last week. Man, all right. Well, I may, when I get my hands on that, I may talk about that this coming week. My cover is a tie this week, mostly because these correlate, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. My tied covers for this week are Silver Surfer number 1 and Spider-Woman number 7, because they're both people saying, shush, don't wake the sleeping person in a bed. look, this is hilarious. The sleeping person in a bed, and I just think it's hilarious that both of those covers did that this week. But like again with Spider-Woman, I just really like this idea of these. They're the same person but different genders. And wait, we're family people. Don't wake the baby. Maybe we should take this outside. Whatever happened to that phrase? Let's take it outside.
I love the shh. No, you shh.
Yeah, it's a fun cover. I liked it a lot. I also like Spawn going, I'm human again. Yeah, because let's pretend like we've never done that before in Spawn. All right, let's now talk about things that we are anticipating for this coming week. And Lo, who first was able to jump the gun and get here early and write that one of us was going to say Rebirth?
Ultron 32. It was like the very first comment.
Good job, Ultron 32. And naturally, because you said DC Rebirth, you get a Marvel book, because that's the only company that you can get codes from. So I tell you what, Ultron 32, when you message me reminding me to give you your code, let me know which of the Marvel books from this week that I talked about that you would like to get a code from. I'll let you pick. I've got Deadpool for Money, I've got Silver Surfer, and I've got Old Man Logan, and I've got Spider-Man, and I have Spider-Woman. Any of those five. You can have one of those codes. And now, let's find out what else we wrote down besides Rebirth. Go ahead, Lo.
My number 3 is Scooby Apocalypse #1.
That was a runner-up for me, yeah.
It's silly and weird. I love Scooby-Doo. I watched it a lot growing up. And I really love Apocalypse stuff. So it's kind of a match made in heaven. Don't really know much about the book, but you got Scooby-Doo and you got Apocalypse. I am down for that #1.
Yeah, it's written and designed by Jim Lee. It's probably for the best that Jim Lee's not drawing every issue because he's always really late. But I think it is cool that he's. I don't know if he is. In fact, I don't know if he's even the main writer on that book. That's what Comixology said, but like I said, I keep getting that wrong, basing things off of them. So he may be also like plotting it, but not writing it. But anyway, I'm not a big Scooby-Doo person, but that looks interesting, so I'll probably at least try it.
Scooby-Doo is amazing.
So my #1 is DC Rebirth. My number 3 is Daredevil #7 because this Elektra thing with that book is really fun and interesting to me, and I like how much of a threat and presence that she was in that last issue, and just this idea that that Daredevil has turned her into a cheater in changing everybody's perceptions to not remember that he's Matt Murdock, where she remembers dating both of them at the same time. It's such a cool idea that I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. And I would assume that in an issue or two, she's going to very quickly figure out what's going to hate him for doing that to her. Lo, what is your next anticipated book?
My number 2 is DC Universe Rebirth #1. So the book that everybody knew we were both going to pick. It's exciting for many reasons, and most of them are because it's relaunching everything. Also with not really talking about the spoilers, but the spoilers that I have read are definitely also feeding into why I'm excited / intrigued by what's going to be happening with Rebirth.
I'm at least intrigued, man. There's some stuff that I don't know that it's a good idea, but I can't wait to look at it. Yeah. My number 2 is Lois and Clark #8, just for all the reasons that I've been talking about with that book, because that is suddenly becoming like the most important Superman book, which is hilarious. Just building up to where our Superman status quo is going to be in Rebirth. All right, well, we have talked about all of our books from last week.
Oh wait, no, I have my number 1.
Go ahead. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
My number 1 is Spider-Woman Omega #1. Was that even something that I needed to say? There we go. We've already really talked about why I'm excited for that earlier in the show.
Right.
Okay, continue.
Well, that was obligatory. No problem. Okay. Well, now we'll go ahead and open up for questions about anything superhero and comic book wise. Any books that we didn't talk about or that we brought up but you'd like us to talk about further. Any upcoming things that you're interested in hearing us discuss. We will give you folks the floor and talk about whatever you'd like us to talk about for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Well, this is pretty early for us getting already.
It is.
Questions.
We got through things really quickly. I think part of it is because I'm so exhausted from traveling that I just don't want to. So I'm like, this is the book I read. Here you go.
Yeah, I had a pretty exhausting weekend myself, but yeah, it wasn't a big giant week, and I imagined that next week, we'll have a lot more to talk about.
Oh, next week is pretty big for me, so, and it's a lot of books that I really like, so it was hard to pick my top 3, and also just, there's a lot.
Says that James DeMatteis and Keith Griffin are writing Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. That's cool. Wants to know. Hi, Matt. Matt wants to know if I'm looking forward specifically to Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. Yeah, I'll probably try the first issue. That wasn't one of the big ones on my list, but I always want to get excited about Birds of Prey, and I guess the last 5 years or so, every time I've checked in on that book, I just haven't been excited about it. And like that last Batgirl run that everybody I went crazy for. I read an issue or two, and I understood why people loved it. It wasn't my cup of tea, but really well written. Just wasn't really for me. But I will definitely try that out. What else? Vacuminator. Okay, so Vacuminator is a giant Power Rangers fan, has picked up on the fact that Lo and I are going to Paramorphicon in August. Captain Lo, what are you most looking forward to about Paramorphicon? Going? Vac? Well, I guess we might be seeing Vac at Paramorphicon. He says, for me, it's meeting all my friends in the Toku fandom in person. Yeah, well, that'll be the second time I've seen Vac. Vac's been to my house. Yeah, right now, like we keep getting more cast lists, and the big thing is just I'm excited to complete my kid's Mighty Morphin picture that he's been getting signed, because we're gonna, after that con, we'll have gotten it signed by every living Power Ranger besides Amy Jo Johnson, and we might, if funds allow, get some of the Sentai folks to sign it also, because at least 3 or 4 of them are going to be there. So that'd be really cool. But one of the things that I'm also really stoked about, Lo, is they just announced 2 of the major characters in actors from Power Rangers the movie are going to be there, and one of them is the guy who played Ivan Ooze, and the other one is the woman who played Dulcia, and so that's exciting too. Especially Ivan Ooze. And I liked what they wrote on their website. Where's my autograph book? I was like, that's exactly. Yeah, you have to. Where's my autograph book? So anyway, I'm excited about that.
At the moment, because I have watched maybe 10 episodes of Power Rangers ever, I'm mostly excited just to meet Cap and Jason. I think that's going to be so much fun to hang out with them all weekend and have them stay with me. But I imagine as I watch a lot of stuff, I'm going to do a lot of binge watching this summer once I don't have all the other shows to keep up with. And I'm also really excited to see which Power Ranger stuff I end up watching in preparation for this. At the moment, there has been some hot contention between members of Geekvolution in our chat as to what stuff I should be reading, or watching. I'm definitely going to watch Mighty Morphin, but I'm going to try and pick at least a couple other things based on who will be there. So we'll see in the next couple months what stuff I can get to.
Yeah, based on who's there, just because then you'll appreciate getting to meet people more in panels and
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, so definitely Mighty Morphin. I'm going to try and get through most of that. I don't know that I'll watch like every single episode just because it's Power Rangers, but I'll definitely try and watch a lot of it.
Yeah, I can give you stuff that's worth watching.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, yeah. Well, I'm flattered that right now I am one of Lo's favorite Power Rangers.
I guess you could take it that way, sure.
Just kidding. Yeah. I'm you're right, Vec. I also saw Mesogog's going to be there. That's great too. I was hoping to chat with David Fielder. He with me where I would interview him, but and the only reason was because he was calling by phone. I didn't want to have to try to voice modulate. So we never ended up doing that, but it was cool that he wanted to do that. He's kind of an improv comedian, and he was like, yeah, I'll pretend to be Zordon for half an hour, and I was like, that'd be a great idea, and then it never happened. But anyway, it'll be fun to see him again, or talk to him again. Hey,
well,
Cap, are you gonna check out ROM #1 when it comes out in July? Yeah, I probably will. We review that, but I've never read the original ROM, so I don't know how accessible it's going to be to new readers.
Something that happened this weekend that is related to comics, but also really related to us, is that I read both of the Red Knight trade paperbacks, and I loved them. And I knew that you had written a foreword for the first trade, but I didn't realize there were going to be all these quotes from people that I knew on the back, too. I was like, oh my gosh, look at all this. Made me really happy. What?
Yeah, I still don't have a copy of that.
What?
Yeah, I know. I wrote that forward like 2 years ago. I still don't have a copy of that. A lot of people telling me to read ROM, so I will try to go back and check that out. I've sold that on eBay before, but I've never actually popped it open and read it.
Lots of people were saying all the different Power Ranger stuff I should watch. That's the problem, is that everybody has an opinion about which stuff I should be watching, and everybody's opinion is different. So it's very like, I'm just going to start with the original and kind of go from there and see what happens after that.
Soundwave, do you think the Question will book in DC Rebirth? I don't know. I guess I could see that happening. I don't know. The Question hasn't had a book in a long time. If so, it probably won't last very long.
Does the Question always get shafted as far as that sort of stuff goes?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those characters that you'd think the Question would be more like Moon Knight, where he could sustain a book for more than a few issues. But and I mean, I guess Moon Knight hasn't been lasting more than like 12, but then he always comes back and gets another one. So it doesn't seem like we can't keep that book on the shelf. It seems like we're just renumbering them a lot, like we do everything. Matt's going to be angry if the Question doesn't get a book.
Angry, that's a good way of putting it.
Well, I think that's going to be it for us tonight, folks. Thanks a lot for watching Comic Book Late Night, and we will see you again next Monday evening at midnight when we'll be talking about Rebirth, and that'll be probably a lot of that show.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. And Lo, I think what we'll do that week is we'll try to truncate our 3 a little bit, and if we have enough on our polls, I think we both have a pretty big poll that week. We'll do 3 books besides Rebirth, and then we'll just have a whole segment on that because we're going to want to spend some time talking about that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So that's my plan right now. Anyway, thanks again, everybody, for watching. I sure appreciate it, whether you watched live or you watched after the fact. Leave your comments and tell us about things you read this week that maybe we didn't, that you really liked or didn't, whatever. And also about any of the books that we read, your opinions on those. And we appreciate you watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the Curious Lo.
And we'll see you again next time.
Bye.